Oh boy, I can't wait to play my favorite game, Sonic Spinball, for the Master System. Video games are a popular medium, but they aren't all created equally. Throughout the years we have gotten tons of video game consoles, but sometimes these consoles are either made less powerful for a cheaper price tag, sometimes they are a portable console which is just less powerful in nature, or maybe there was just an older system that was still popular and companies wanted to support it. No matter the reason, we have gotten a lot of games that needed to be heavily changed or downgraded to work on weaker hardware, and the Sonic series has tons of examples of this. So today we will be looking at some of these downgraded Sonic games to see if they are any good or maybe even better than the game it was based off of. So to start off, we need to go all the way back to the 90s when Sega was actually competing in the console market. Back when the Genesis was in its prime, Sega also had their own handheld called the Sega Game Gear. This was a portable console in direct competition with the Game Boy, and unlike its rival console, was actually pretty powerful. It was basically a portable NES, which at the time was very impressive. You just needed to make a large investment in some batteries if you wanted it to last for more than a few hours. But the important thing is that the Game Gear shared very similar hardware to the Sega Master System. So when it was time to bring Sonic games to the Game Gear, Sega went ahead and put them on the Master System as well. These consoles got ports of Sonic 1, 2, and Spinball. So were these versions any good? Starting with Sonic 1, this game features a few new zones that replace some of the ones from the original. Somehow Labyrinth Zone made the cut. We have some exciting ones like Bridge Zone. Can you guess the gimmick here? The one thing I find interesting about this game is that it's an 8-bit Sonic game, which is cool because this character wasn't really around during that time, so it's fun to see what that looks like. This version of the game is fine. I'm already not a big fan of Sonic 1, but this one is also pretty different, so is this a good version of the game? I guess. Wait, nope. There's an auto-scrolling level. Bad version. So with Sonic 2, this game actually features only new levels, which is pretty cool to see for this game. It gives you an actual reason to want to play it. This game also features a lot of its own really cool gimmicks like these mine carts or these hang gliding sections, which offer a fun way to switch up the gameplay. Also, both of these games control extremely well for Sonic games on Game Gear. It definitely doesn't feel as good as the Genesis games, but it's pretty impressive for what it is. This game also has its own very original zone called Green Hills Zone. Not Green Hill, Green Hills. It's very different because there are more hills in this one. Overall, Sonic 2 for the Master System and Game Gear is pretty good. It's basically its own original game, so if you're a hardcore fan of the classics, I would recommend giving this one a shot. Now on to Sonic Spinball. No. You see, I'm actually a Sonic Spinball fan because I quite like the Genesis version. Sadly, it did not transfer over very well. After the days of the Game Gear were over, Sega didn't really have any portables or weaker systems to make games for, but once Sega dropped out of the console business, they started putting games on handhelds like the GBA, but they were still making completely original games. But once the DS rolled around, they decided to once again start making portable versions of their home console games, with the first being Sega Superstars Tennis. This game is a tennis game. As far as the main gameplay goes, that's about it. You can charge up supers, which power you up, but there isn't much else going on other than that. The mission mode can be pretty fun, as you get special objectives that act as references to other Sega series. My personal favorite is the Puyo Puyo one. I think it's pretty fun. The game also runs pretty well, so that's another bonus. But we do have another crossover spin-off that hit the DS with Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. You see, the DS version is actually the version of this game that I grew up playing, and to be honest, going back to it was better than I thought it would be. The game runs at 60 FPS and feels pretty good to play. All the courses are still here, but obviously they are a little more low poly. Yeah, besides that, I don't have much to say. These are both pretty good ports of these games and run pretty well for the DS. Back in 2008, Sonic Team had their new big game Sonic Unleashed coming out on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Problem was, the third big platform, the Wii, was not powerful enough to run the game, so it was decided to make a weaker version that would be released on both the Wii and the PS2 since they were similar in power. This game follows the same story and level themes of the original, but has new level design and tweaked gameplay. As far as the daytime stages go, we still have the boost formula, but it's a little different. Instead of having a full boost bar, the boost bar is filled up with little segments, and whenever you press the button, it uses up one of those segments. This means that you cannot just hold down the boost button or control when it ends, meaning that you now have the time when you want to use your boost for the best result. While I don't know if I prefer this over the original boost and Unleashed, I think it offers an interesting way to play through these levels, as boosting requires you to think a little more rather than just holding down the button and hoping for the best. Also, your ranking has nothing to do with the score, but rather your time, like the cyberspace levels in Frontiers. These levels can be difficult to get these times in though, and it will definitely require multiple playthroughs of the levels, so I think this still works. But besides these changes, everything else feels pretty standard as far as your moves and movement go. But my problems with this version of the game are with the nighttime levels. You see, if you watch my video on the other playable Sonic characters, you would know that I am a big defender of the Werehog levels. I think that they are pretty fun and enjoyable. I don't really feel the same about this version's Werehog levels. The game simplifies Werehog combat to a degree that it just isn't fun anymore. From what I played, the platforming and level design is also just a lot less interesting as well, and while these levels are a lot shorter, you have to play through a bunch of them back to back, so it is basically the same thing, but you have to sit through loading screens and level end screens. And then when you are done with one of the levels, the hub is now just a PNG of the area, and you have to just sit and skip through dialogue until you get what you want, and sometimes I would travel to one area just to watch a cutscene, then go to another area and watch another cutscene, and then you can travel to the area where the level really is. Even though it is technically simplified, it still somehow feels more tedious and annoying than before. Well, I think the daytime levels are still fun, they are nowhere near as good as the main game's levels, and the nighttime levels are completely ruined in this game. Overall, this version is just not that great, and if I could give any advice, I would just say to stick with the 360 and PS3 versions. So, before we get into this game, I want to go ahead and say that I do not enjoy Sonic Colors. It has its positives, but overall I think that it's just not that good of a game, and is a lot more like Forces than people admit. But the DS version, though. Rarely is a portable version of a home console game better than that home console version, but when it is beautiful to see. This game was made by the guys that made Sonic Rush, and it really shows. This game is practically a continuation of those games, except some of the mechanics, like how you fill your boost bar, are now dedicated to the Wisps, like in the main version of Sonic Colors. To me, a lot of the problems with Sonic Colors come from its level design, but here the level design is great and it allows you to zoom through levels if you know what you're doing, which I feel is something that the main game kinda lacked. The boost just feels amazing to use, and all of the wisps are pretty fun and rarely slow you down at all. The game even introduces its own wisps with the red burst, which allows you to charge an explosion that launches you into the air. Also, unlike the Wii version, this game has actual special stages and an actual supersonic boss fight at the end of the game, which is very appreciated. I would definitely say that if you're like me and really aren't that impressed by the Wii version of Sonic Colors, give the DS version a try because it's a lot better than I thought it would be. Sonic Generations is one of the best Sonic games ever made, but it was only released for the Xbox 360 and PS3. So what did us Nintendo fans get? Instead of getting a Wii version of the game, we were given a version on the then newly released 3DS. This game was made by the same guys that made Colors DS, so it was safe to say that this game was in good hands. Like the original, this game is split into two different gameplay styles with the modern and classic levels. Classic Sonic is pretty similar to the console version, except you unlock the homing attack really early on in the game, which just kinda turns him into modern Sonic, but with a spin dash instead of a boost. As far as modern Sonic goes, he is pretty different from the console version of the game because his levels are now fully 2D, which like I talked about earlier makes the modern and classic levels seem a lot more similar to each other. Modern Sonic occasionally has some 3D stuff happen in his levels, which is pretty cool. The special stages are also 3D and are basically just the special stages from Sonic Heroes. This game actually has a lot of stuff from Sonic Heroes, like the menu music, special stages, a boss fight, but surprisingly no stages from Sonic Heroes. Maybe they were just compensating. Speaking of stages, this game features completely different stages from the console version of the game, except for, well, you could probably guess which one stuck around. We have stages like Mushroom Hill instead of Angel Island, Radical Highway instead of City Escape, and a few others. The game overall has less stages than the console version, which is a little disappointing, but it's not the worst thing ever. We do have Water Palace from Sonic Rush, and the Tropical Resort stage features the Red Burst Wisp and some level elements from the DS version of Sonic Colors, which I thought was a nice touch. We also have some exclusive boss fights with Big Arms, Bio Lizard, and Egg Emperor. Big Arms is basically identical to the original fight, and the other two are fun recreations of 3D bosses in a 2D area. I actually think the Bio Lizard fight is pretty faithful to the original and is still pretty fun. The rival fights are here too, but instead of them all having their own gimmicks, now they're all just races against the other character and aren't really anything that memorable. Especially since now you fight them in locations that barely have anything to do with the characters. I have no idea why I would be fighting Silver in Tropical Resort, but it's whatever. This is a decent version of the game, but doesn't really come close to the console versions, and in my opinion isn't nearly as good as the DS version of Sonic Colors. I would really only recommend this one if you're already a pretty big fan of the series. With Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, we have a situation similar to the first game on DS. The game runs well, unless it doesn't. And yeah, the game looks pretty rough. The game tries extremely hard to give the same experience as the console version, which is great, because the console versions are amazing. But it seems that while they were doing this, they forgot what the 3DS could handle. There really isn't much else to say here except skip out on the 3DS version and go play this game on console or PC, because it is one of the best racing games ever made. So the final game we have is Sonic Lost World. This game is just sort of meh. It has some interesting ideas with the parkour. And the parkour, yeah, the parkour is really the only thing interesting this game did. But even then, it didn't use it that often and ended up just feeling like a cheap Mario Galaxy knockoff. So when it launched with the 3DS version, I imagined that it would be extremely bland and just be some poorly made 2D version of the game. But to my surprise, it's pretty much just as good as the console version. Now that isn't saying a whole lot, since the console version isn't the greatest to begin with, but the fact that we have a full 3D platformer on the 3DS here definitely surprised me. All of the mechanics like the parkour and gravity are all here, just like the console version, and feel basically identical. The level designs are different along with a few other things, but for the most part, this is just Sonic Lost World with downgraded graphics. They did add special stages to this version. They're not worth it. So if for some reason you are a huge fan of Sonic Lost World, well, here's a way for you to play some more Sonic Lost World. While a lot of these games just feel like rushed versions of better games just so they could reach a wider market, some of these games are genuinely pretty fun, or in Sonic Colors' case, better than the original. But nowadays, we live in a time where portables are beginning to catch up with home consoles, and weaker consoles can handle a lot more than they used to. I mean, if you just look at the most recent game, Sonic Frontiers, the full game is running at a stable frame rate on a portable console. But part of me will always miss these downgraded versions, because they have always felt pretty charming to me, and occasionally they are actually pretty good. Not you.